Okay. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 labeled segregation as illegal in the United States. As a result of this act, people are able to walk on the streets today without being unlawfully discriminated for their differences. However, this is not to say that our nation is completely colorblind. Today, minority groups, although much better off than before, still suffer from a minor form of segregation, namely affirmative action. Affirmative action are policies that take into account a person's race, color, religion, gender, sexual orientation, or origin to eliminate the discrimination and improve their chances for an underrepresented group getting into a higher education institution or workplace. This brings me to my topic of affirmative action on education. There are a lot of universities throughout the country use affirmative action during their admissions process. Some public universities, like those outside of California, Michigan, and Texas, use them because those in California, Michigan, and Texas actually have a state law that does not allow them to use affirmative action policies. Also, a lot of private universities, including Harvard and other Ivy League schools, use affirmative action. This brings me to my proposition. My contention is that affirmative action has a significant negative impact on students applying to higher education institutions in the U.S. I shall use 2 points to prove this. Affirmative action fails to provide equal chances of admission for students. And number 2, institutions using affirmative action uphold diversity at the expense of a rich social and academic experience for students. Going back to my first point, affirmative action fails to provide equal chances of admission for students to various universities in the U.S. So minority students who are given preferential treatment have higher chances of getting admitted with lower levels of achievement than other students. According to Peter Kirsanov, member of the National Labor Relations Board and the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, a regression analysis conducted by Robert Lerner and Althea Nagai on behalf of the Center for Equal Opportunity shows that at some schools, blacks applicants are more than 100 times likely to be admitted than white students with the same GPAs and SATs. On the other hand, other students, like Asians, have lower chances of admission because they have to maintain high achievement rates to gain acceptance to a university that is using affirmative action policies. According to a recent article from USA Today titled "Some Asian College Strategy Don't Check Asian," a study by Princeton sociologist Thomas Espenshade examined applicants to Cobb colleges from 1997. The maximum SAT score was 1600, and he found that Asian Americans needed a 1550 SAT to have an equal chance of getting into an elite college as a white student with a 1410 or a black student with 1100. Because of this, we can infer from this that such Asian students need to have a much more higher achievement to join college than other students as a result of affirmative action. And therefore, we see that not all groups have equal chance of acceptance. This brings me to my second point. Racial diversity that results from affirmative action in these institutions fail to substantially benefit the social or academic experience of the students. First off, the push for a diverse campus fails to improve the student's social life because it does not remove the racial boundaries that various racial groups experience. Studies have shown that diversity, for example, do not improve group participation. Anthony Lysing Antonio, an assistant professor at the School of Education at Stanford University, conducted a research at a particular diversity university, unnamed university that is. He discovered that 90% of the students on campus formed groups with people of their own ethnicity or race. This is more common among African Americans who tended who had more homogeneous friendship groups. As a result, he concluded that regardless of the racial and ethnic diversity of the student best friends, students on this multicultural campus still see segregation. In other words, diversity on campus does not have a positive effect on the social life of students because they remain segregated. And this is not only the case with the social life of students, there's also affirmative action also affects the educational experience. Various researchers, including Patrick Terenzi, Abel Carrera, and their colleagues, evaluated the influence of racial and ethnic diversity in the classroom on students' problem solving and group skills. They found out that low, medium-low, and high-level classroom diversity actually negatively impacted the development of these skills. Only a medium diverse class with about 33-38% colored and minority students had a positive effect on the students' skill development. So we can see from this that for the most part, diversity has a negative effect on students' education. And as a result, because it these lower social and educational values, institutions lower the standards to accommodate for these levels. Mary E. Williams, the author for Interracial America, supports this claim as she writes, "Institutions that give preference pay a heavy price. In academic institutions, intellectual standards are lowered, explicitly or in secret. Student performance is unavoidably lower on average than it would have been without the preferences, as is faculty productivity and satisfaction." As a result, we see that diversity is the main focus of universities, not exactly enriching social, but the academic experience of these students. Thus, students applying to such institutions do not have a bright prospect ahead of them, because they do not have, in terms of the desegregated social life and enriching education. Now that we have seen the effects of affirmative action, I hope you all agree with me that affirmative action and college admission process have a significantly negative impact on students applying. Thank you.
That was 6 minutes and 12 seconds.
All right. All right, the background on civil rights issue is fine as an attention device. I thought you made a good transition to affirmative action as a subject. You do identify the topic and then state your proposition pretty clearly. The preview of the supporting points is fine, although I do think that second point is still a little complicated in the way that it's phrased and could be simplified to some degree. But when you're in the body of the speech, you do signpost it pretty clearly. I think you could use a couple of examples of the affirmative action policies that you're talking about, but in terms of proof, you have good statistical information that you're using to suggest that there is in fact discrimination that's going on, and you quantify it to some degree. And then you also have some information that suggests that there's very little benefit from the diversity that occurs, and I thought you did a pretty good job on that. The inferences that you're making seem to be well supported by the information that you have. The presentation could be a little bit more effective. You're doing way too much reading. You need a lot more energy in your voice, and you want to focus on the audience while you're making the argument. I can tell that you did good research on the subject, but it does sound a little bit like you're reading a paper out loud. All right, thank you.